It's so much fun to be able to travel around, and as you can see, I'm kind of, if you had to market me, I guess the label would be Vegan Mythbuster. And one of the ways I do it, and we'll talk about it, it's not only through the books that I write, but what I do in my running. So I encourage you all to go out and run, buy a bright shirt. I just got back from the National Senior Games last week, and we'll talk about that. Ran all of those events there. And this is my third place in the US in the 4x1 100-meter relay. And we were 1/10 of a second away from getting second place, except that the final leg runner did what's called in track a face plant right at the finish line. She was just trying to push it through, and so these things happen, but it's all fun. Just get out there, find whatever it is you love, and do it. So these are some of the books. Yes, Vegan Sex just came out this week. Are there any kids in the audience? Okay. It's only on Kindle right now, and apparently that is what is driving the rankings and my 70 ranking on Amazon, whatever. And I'm sure I'm going to get, I already have gotten some invitations to speak about that, and I'll just say that it's, I hope, the last myth to fall. So, but we're going to talk about eating vegan on a budget, because that is why I was invited here, so we'll stick to that topic. And, you know, I always ask the question, I was a financial consultant, and I asked it then, like, what do you fear the most about your financial future? And if you just want to yell it out as I ask this question and you think deeply into it, what do you fear the most about your financial future?
Running out of money.
Running out of money, just scream it out, whatever comes. Going into debt.
Current government.
Current government. We're not going to go there. We're not going to go there. But good point. What else? Anybody? Deep down fear that you might have. Getting sick. Getting sick and not being able to get money.
Losing everything you have.
Losing everything you have.
Healthcare is very expensive.
Healthcare, so expensive. Anybody fear being a bag lady? Yeah. And retirement, running out of money. I would ask my audiences when I was a financial consultant the same question. Women who were worth $20 million, they would say, being a bag lady. And I'm thinking, like, if they are afraid of being a bag lady, what about the rest of us? And the headlines, of course, appeal to our fear and what we are most concerned about. So just briefly, I'm going to go through my background since this is my first time here. Just tell you how this all evolved. In that picture there, I'm in the back next to my dad. Those are the only two people in that picture who didn't get breast cancer. Mom, aunt, both sisters got it. We were part of the original Myriad Genetics breast cancer gene studies, although nobody in our family needed a study to tell us what we already knew. It turns out, though, 2 of the cases are not genetic. 2 are environmentally caused late in life. So there is much you can do to turn your genes on and off. I didn't find out until the Affordable Care Act whether I had the gene or not myself, because the studies don't tell you. It's all very confidential. If before the Affordable Care Act and pre-existing conditions went into effect, if I'd gotten the test, turned out positive, and gotten breast cancer, it would have been considered a pre-existing condition. So I waited all that time. Turns out my sisters were right, looked just like my dad, got all the good genes, I guess. I became a reporter, television news in Miami, found out the school superintendent was stealing gold-plated plumbing for his summer home. Not cool. He eventually went to jail. The whole thing caused riots in Miami. Another story. I got out of town after 2 years there because I had death threats. Moved back to St. Louis, my hometown, where at the age of 28, I almost died of a colon blockage in the newsroom. They rushed me to the hospital and the doctor said, "Oh, we have never seen a colon blockage this large in somebody this young. You need to be on medicine the rest of your life." And I go, 28, I'm too young to be on any kind of medicine. So I ran to the health food store, read all 5 books on fiber, because that's all there was at the time, and I immediately went macrobiotic. So there are the beans and the grains. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch did a cover story about what I was doing, and I jokingly said to the reporter, you know, my dream in life is to open up a fast food, health food chain and call it Tofu Tico. And of course, that becomes the headline for the story. So be careful when you talk to reporters. I only regret that I didn't think of a name like, I don't know, Whole Foods. So after I left television, I became a financial consultant. I had 3 daughters, and then I got a lot of coverage doing that because who leaves the world of journalism to deal with numbers? I often wondered how I could do it myself, but everybody said, oh, it's more of a marketing business. You don't have to worry about numbers. You just look at the computer if you have a question. At this particular point, we actually brought, Smith Barney did Race for the Cure to St. Louis for the first time, and I realized that at their fundraising luncheon they had, there was nobody there from the Broccoli Association. Nobody there from the broccoli corporations or the broccoli lobby, but they sure had a lot of folks from the device companies that were making things that would cure cancer or medicine that would cure cancer. And of course, the idea is that investors would plunk their money into those companies, but not the broccoli companies. In that time, 5 years sitting behind a computer, going to all kinds of customer dinners and all kinds of investment events, I put on 25 pounds again and was dealing with that. So for those of you who are new to the vegan party, what is a vegan? There are some of the definitions and reasons why people get into it, and often we get into it for one reason and start connecting the dots, and lo and behold, we just can't leave. All right, we are the only species drinking milk from another species. One of the many things I've done, I became a La Leche League leader because doctors said breastfeeding is the best thing you can do to prevent breast cancer, use it or lose it kind of thing. And here I had this sister who breastfed 4 children for 6 months each and still got breast cancer 3 times. I'm thinking like, I need to like breastfeed these kids to adulthood maybe. But anyway, what this all means is that nature provides. We do not need to be drinking milk from another species. And at the age of theoretical weaning, we should be able to eat whatever we need without having to drink milk from another species. And of course, there are all kinds of reasons not to drink cow's milk. It makes baby cows grow into ginormous cows very quickly. And it also, the research shows, makes baby tumors grow into big tumors very quickly, which may explain why at least 2 of the cases in my family of breast cancer were estrogen receptive. So it's that whole thing of getting the hormones that are promoting growth very hugely. And of course, then there is the issue of MRSA. My one sister who did not have breast cancer, she was obese, she had diabetes and heart disease, and in her 70s went in for routine, don't you love that word, herniated disc surgery, and flatlined during the surgery on the table, went into a coma. MRSA entered in somehow through the IV, and she became quadriplegic and lived in a nursing home for the rest of her 6 miserable years of life. So this is another reason I do this, because all these dots are so connected. And you think, oh, you know, I've got diabetes, I can cure it with medicine. Well, maybe. And the end of life prognosis is not great if you suffer from diabetes. So important to look at all these different issues. Okay, there are all kinds of wonderful memes. I'm going to show some of these from, I don't think Marla Rose is here yet, or she's in the building. She runs Vegan Mania out of Chicago, and she and her husband, John, do these incredible memes as part of their website, Vegan Street. So there are, I think, 700 of them now, and many of us use them in different presentations. So it's one of the reasons that antibiotics are so prolific is because, first of all, it's given in the feed to cows, but it's also given to them to prevent mastitis. As any breastfeeding mama will tell you, if you don't breastfeed, then you get engorged and you have to go on antibiotics sometimes to deal with the infection. So dairy cows are given antibiotics routinely. They're also given hormones to increase milk production. Thank you, Monsanto, St. Louis, where I was a reporter. That was their corporate headquarters. We tried to do all kinds of stories on this to no avail. And so as a result of the cows having to produce more milk, sometimes if they don't get all of that milk released, they get mastitis. So this is probably one of my more favorite memes there, you know, just showing the ridiculousness of how we really don't need to be drinking milk from another species. Okay, just moving right along. My timeline here, basically what this shows is I was vegan actually before I got married. I made the transition, as many of us did back in the 70s, macrobiotic, vegetarian, then vegan. Then when I had kids, the doctors said you need to give your kids meat and dairy, and there weren't courageous doctors running around saying, no, you really don't need to do that, or dietitians. And so when I went to Smith Barney, I gained all this weight, and yes, I did Atkins in 2000, and you're going like, Atkins, what were you thinking? And because for a lot of people, a high protein diet works in the short run, often at the expense of our heart and our kidneys, as we now know. There was a resurgence of publicity, as if you followed any of this, saying, Atkins was right, fat is good. No, it's not. But what really hadn't changed was not the science, it was just the marketing. And Atkins was on Larry King, and there was a New York Times story called What If It Was a Big Fat Lie? And all these kinds of things made people think, okay, this is the best way to lose weight. And trying to avoid breast cancer, which at the time was my number one concern, losing weight was it. Of course, then I get coronary calcifications, and then fibroid tumors, and I find myself in the emergency room a second time. Doctors wanted to do a hysterectomy, and my OB, who turns out to be a closet vegan, goes, Ellen, go back to that vegan diet and call me in the morning. How many of us would be saved from hysterectomies and all kinds of other procedures if we had a courageous doctor who said, go on a vegan diet and call me in the morning? Well, my success, and I lost that weight, I hope for the final time, was not myself, but in my cooking classes, I taught for Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. They formed the Cancer Project, and now it's called Food for Life. If you have an opportunity to get involved in their program or go to their classes, they're awesome. But Corky Carlson needed to lose 120 pounds. She had a terribly fatal form of cancer called multiple myeloma. And when she came to my class, she had been given up for dead. And she lost that weight in a period of 8 months without counting a calorie, without ever being hungry, and loving the food. And that was about 10 years ago. She is still alive today. So these kinds of stories really don't get reported a whole lot. The local newspaper did a before and after story using the pictures. And people come up to me all the time when they hear what I'm doing. They rip out their driver's license, and as this woman did, and said, I lost 130 pounds. So it does work. Results are typical. Ask your doctor if plants are right for you. All right, let's talk about finances, because I know that's why you're here. That's what we have billed this talk as, and we're going to blow through this here. So we're looking at the highest numbers of people in the U.S. who are living at the poverty level or below, about 1 in 6. We're going to do a little bit of math here. So $23,000 divided by 4 people in a family of 4. If you spend a fourth of your income on food, that gives you about $1,400 for food per person divided by the number of days in the year, and look what you come up with, $4 a day for food. So about in 2008, I was thinking, how am I going to show people that you can really eat cheaply? So here are some ideas. How many of you belong to a CSA, Community Supported Agriculture Farm? Oh, good. Glad to see so many hands. The rest of you maybe want to check them out. You can go, and they all work different ways. Basically, you pay for a share, and you go there every week, every other week if you want to split the share, and you get just bags and bags of usually organic produce. Some farms don't pay for the organic certification because it's expensive, and they pass that along to you. But if you go volunteer there, you can see where they're getting their seeds from. Very cool. I have, in my book, Eat Vegan on $4 a Day, I have 3 pages of tips in the back, and one of them is this website. If you go there, you can find any CSA near you. You can find a local farm. If you go volunteer there, you can often get the food discounted or, in some cases, for free. So very cool. The advantages of a CSA are all of these things, and especially, we were just talking about this at dinner last night, and it turns out Russ, who is one of the organizer of this event, or one of the organizers, has a farm and has a CSA, and was talking about how people just really learn how to cook different foods, things that you would have never thought you would have ever tried. You can turn your backyard into a lovely, or front yard into a lovely landscaped thing like that, or you can make it a container garden, the whole thing, and grow beautiful things like basil and all kinds of herbs. All right, so in March of 2008, Dr. McDougall had a newsletter where he said that he believed that all of the foods, the recipes in his book could be cooked for less than $3 a day instead of going to fast food restaurants. So back in 2008, I did the old-fashioned thing before apps and smartphones, and I got out an Excel spreadsheet and ran around to local grocery stores and big box stores and tracked prices of ingredients I thought that might go into a cookbook. I really wanted to crunch the numbers. Nobody had ever done that, and I was trying to use the financial part of my brain. How can we prove to people that eating vegan is so ridiculously cheap? And I did that through this software called Living Cookbook, and it actually crunched the numbers for me, putting out the estimated price of every single recipe. So if I entered the price of oats at a dime and it served 5 people, it would be 2 cents. That's kind of how it worked per serving. So we came up with an estimated price right there and then rounded it up to the nearest quarter. And every recipe in the book has an estimated price based on foods you can find at big box stores. And people go, oh, are you recommending Walmart? I'm going like, if you're living below the poverty level of $20,000 a year, you're going to already be shopping at Walmart. And I also wanted to prove that every community has a store like this so that you don't have to go to a health food store to eat healthfully on a vegan diet. And I saw so many stories on the news that said you can't eat well on food stamps. As there's this one interview where a woman was loading her grocery cart with Twinkies and macaroni and cheese, and I'm going like, I've got to do this. I've got to crunch these numbers. So that is what I did. And I went around to the stores, actually started taking pictures, and that little red box that you see there, that is the unit price, the per ounce price for every item that is on the shelf. So you can really start doing the calculations. And the reality is the price of beans just hasn't gone up. I've had people stand up in my audiences and say, it hasn't changed in 30 years. And even a guy who buys for a monastery came up to me once at a talk and said, I buy for $1 a day for everybody in the monastery. Especially when you compare it to beef. And here are some of the prices per ounce. Again, a nickel an ounce is what it is for beans, roughly. Even the cheapest form of hamburger meat is still greatly more expensive than a serving of beans. And when you start getting more expensive cuts of beef, look at some of these prices here. This one, $1.12 per ounce, compared to a nickel an ounce for beans. I mean, who has that kind of money? So we're going to crunch some numbers because I love numbers. And we're going to take a look here, an ounce at 5 cents. One serving is about 1/4 cup dry, 4 ounces cooked. That's about a dime for a serving of beans. Keep this number in mind as we go through the next slides. Now for beef tenderloin at $1.12 an ounce, if you are eating 8 ounces of that, that's almost $9 per person. And maybe in a restaurant, 16 ounces of what you get, but these are Walmart prices. These are not restaurant prices, so ridiculously expensive. Beans are full of fiber, full of protein. They're low in calories, no cholesterol. It's a great deal. Even if you go canned for convenience purposes, it still is pretty cheap. Frozen, not too bad, 38 cents an ounce. And even on a global scale, it's ridiculously cheap to start eating beans and grains. And how I found this out was there's an organization based out of Orlando called Feeding Children Everywhere. And they rented out a warehouse, loaded it up in the background, as you can see, with rice and beans. And they didn't want to produce these like soy balls that they were sending overseas. So they decided to try and do real food. So they got volunteers, put them in packages like this. So what you're seeing there would be lentils, rice, dehydrated vegetables, and some sea salt for minerals. And then they got a whole bunch of volunteers, put them in boxes, and then took up the whole Tampa Convention Center and really put it together to do this incredible work. But what I loved the most was the packaging that says 4 meals only cost $1. We can feed the world on a vegan diet for ridiculously inexpensive costs. That's what it cooks up into. I tasted it, it was pretty good. Versus a medium-sized cheese pizza at $17. Really? All right, we are facing some incredible environmental conditions that are greatly affecting the price of food. And this number has been all over, anywhere from 2030 to 2050, where we are forced to go vegan. I often say, I hope you like the recipes in my cookbooks, because we're all going to be eating this way, whether we want to or not. And the big thing is water. There's not enough water to support the meat and dairy industries. And we can feed so many more people on a plant-based diet. All right, another great meme from veganstreet.com. You know, the whole thing a year or two ago when California was going through yet another drought crisis, trying to pin it all on almonds. Those killer almonds taking up so much water. I don't think so. So you can see the statistics here. And if you shorten each shower by 1 or 2 minutes, you could save 150 gallons of water per month versus 600 gallons of water just by not eating a hamburger. All right, let's do that math. And the whole thing, United Nations saying you can do more to reduce your carbon footprint and global warming by going vegan more than giving up any form of transportation, even your Prius. All right, and then just getting to get people to look at the carbon footprint of your diet is so important. And how does that relate to cost? Because we have to pay for the mess that we create. Yes, it's all over the fields and our lakes and rivers. In Florida, we deal with this. You know, you get runoff during floods and the dead zones that we have where nothing grows, including fish. They can't find anything to eat. So it affects all of us. So 1 acre of land, you can produce way more plants than you can 137 pounds of beef here compared to 40,000 pounds of tomatoes and 53,000 pounds of potatoes, which could keep me happy for the rest of my life. All right, and we can even look at the cost of cheese here. What is this? Not only in health costs, but also what it takes to produce an actual block of cheese. So you can look at some of these numbers and just try and wrap your head around what it really does cost to eat a diet full of meat and dairy. So hamburger and dairy, there's no fiber and plenty of all kinds of hormones and everything. But we do have to worry about that protein question because the largest animals on the planet are vegan, but we still worry about the protein question. All right, because saving money at the hospital and by avoiding doctors and diseases is important, I think it's also important to get a good, healthy lifestyle no matter how you do it. I'm going to breeze through these just so you can kind of see my journey here. 2012, to compete in the National Senior Games, you got to compete at the local level. If you qualify there, you go on to the state level, which I did back in 2012, and that was 2013. The first National Senior Games I went to, I was 7th. I was all proud of this, 7th in the 1,500 meters that year. That was the only ribbon I got. The first 3, you get the flashy medals, and then they give ribbons out through 8. And keep in mind, you know, there are hundreds of people in your age group who compete at this level. So it was pretty challenging just to get there. But before the 1,500, this woman, the one who gets first, right? Well, she's standing on the top of the podium there. And she comes up to me before the race and she goes, "Ellen Jaffe Jones, cookbook author, right?" And I go, "Yeah, and why do you know this and who are you?" And she says, "I study all my competition." I'm going like, holy guacamole, I'm just a weekend athlete. What am I doing here? And of course, she did get first. And I ran into her again last week at the Senior Games, and I said, "Weren't you the woman who came up to me?" And I told her that I talk about her a lot in my talks. And she goes, "Yeah, that sounds like something I would have said." But a lot of these women have full-time coaches from UCLA, and they even hire them to come with them to these events to coach them there. And I'm just going like, all right, we'll see how this goes. All right, so I did it again a couple of years ago. I didn't go to nationals when I got all those first place awards that you heard of, which are what these are, because I was speaking at Vegetarian Summerfest, otherwise known as Vegan Summer Camp, for us vegans who have just looking for meaning and pursuit of happiness. And a lot of the national speakers go there, coming up again in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. So I got in as a speaker there, and I was all excited to do that. So I skipped the National Senior Games that year. But after the event, they sent me the survey. You had to fill out different questions, like what your resting heart rate was and all that. So I got this back saying, "You're 62 years old, but you have the fitness of an average 26-year-old. So again, this year, this was the final total. I am showing you that picture there because I'd had bronchitis for 2 months going into the Senior Games, and I'm going, my goal is just not to finish last. And so I got, let's see, 3rd in the 4x1s, as I mentioned, third in the, or fifth in the 800 and seventh in the 1500 and the 400 meters. So the medium to longer distances are really my forte. The sprint, I don't have 50-meter, 100-meter legs, but it's all fun. And again, people are always asking, where do you get your protein? Do I look like I have a protein deficiency? Okay, I think we've established that. So running has been my passion 117 times since 2006. What I want to show you here is a marathon body. I've done 2 marathons and a bunch of half marathons, and very lean, eating the same diet. That is a sprinter's body. Sprinter's upper body anyway, because you're using your arms. So you don't really have to go to the gym, just by a simple act of running out in your backyard. I asked a lot of women at the senior games, where did you learn how to throw a discus? Or some of these fancy things, because they do the whole spectrum of Olympic events at the National Senior Games. And they said they just watch a YouTube video. So they certainly didn't have track when I was in high school, but it is exhausting work. Somebody has to do it. All right, paleo vegan I wrote just because the paleo craze was driving me crazy, and a lot of my running friends were doing this. And I'm not here to talk about that other than to say another myth I like to bust, because National Geographic agreed with me. All of those sticky tabs there are pretty much quotes right out of my book, saying that it wasn't like a wild boar was running through our backyard 3 times a day and we could catch it successfully. They also said, really huge for such a mainstream publication, the world can't support a diet based around meat and dairy. So that is paleo vegan. And again, people just so worried where we're getting our protein. Here are just a few sources. Again, Vegan Street doing the work for me. And look at those luscious forms of protein. So beautiful and colorful. Yeah, don't worry about protein. A banana has 1 gram of protein, so I'm not suggesting a diet of bananas, but we're not going to be suffering from protein deficiency. Does anybody know anybody who has a protein deficiency? Sometimes one person will raise their hand. I always want to say, could you show me the medical result, the lab results on that? But we need to be more concerned about diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. And of course, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, Dr. Neil Barnard, in that picture will be speaking today, one of my heroes. I saw him speak in my young life and thought, wow, this guy is really amazing. And this follows the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine's guide of what you should be eating on a daily basis. It is ridiculously cheap when you do the math. And again, I'm just going to breeze through some prices here on some really cheap things that you can be eating and incorporating into your diet if you aren't already. But these are the cheapest foods on the planet. And when you start putting foods in a box, they do get a little more expensive, looking at that 15 cents per ounce versus the nickel that we saw earlier. So I allow yourself to even splurge on quinoa in a box. It still is 41 cents an ounce, very cheap compared to any kind of meat or dairy. And that's really the message that I try and get across, is when you do the apples to apples here and really compare the numbers, eating vegan is so ridiculously cheap. Grains, still really cheap. Here are some vegetables that are ridiculously cheap, just historically. Cabbage, of course. Cucumbers will go a long way. Spaghetti squash, you can make several meals out of. Sweet potatoes. That's how I lost all my weight. I followed Mary's Mini. If you Google Mary's Mini, it's still up there. Just a great way to lose weight, using sweet potatoes as the basis of your diet. I would cook a whole casserole dish full of them, cut them in little wedges, and anytime I got hungry, I would pop them in my mouth. And when you put them in the fridge, the juices ooze out even more. And to me, it was just like eating candy. And your taste buds really do change once you go to this way of eating. All right, beets. How many of you hate beet greens? Hate beet greens. We have any beet green haters here? If you don't like beet greens, the option may be for you to get a different variety. This is called the candy cane variety of beets, and I got them from my CSA, and they tasted so much sweeter and saltier. I went back the next week and asked the farmer, I said, what's up with this? I really never liked beet greens before. And he said, it's just the variety. I thought maybe it was the soil composition. No, just the variety. So if you don't like one vegetable, try another. There are hundreds of them, of course. And tomatoes, cherry tomatoes reseed themselves year after year in a garden. Carrots, still very cheap on the scale. The different colors and varieties of peppers are going to be more expensive than green peppers, but they ripen longer on the vine, so I guess they have to pay for all that time out in the sunshine. Bananas, nature's fast food. Really, just so cool, bananas. Runners use them all the time versus these glow-in-the-dark muffins at $1/4 an ounce, or these spongy things you could probably throw against the wall for 25 cents an ounce, versus 50 cents a serving for these sweet potato muffins, one of the recipes in my book. What would you rather have? This chocolate cake at $8 or so, and look at what you get for your money. All these lovely ingredients you can't pronounce. Or a chocolate surprise cake, another recipe in the book. What is in this recipe? And for those of you who have the book, you can't tell me. But what do you think? What ingredients do you think are in that recipe? Dates? Chocolate, beans? No. Sweet potatoes. All right. There we go. Beets, pineapple, date. Yes, and chocolate, of course. Cocoa, whatever you want to throw in for your chocolate source. This is a real good, sneaky, stealth recipe that you can serve to people, and then when they taste it, they don't really know what they've been eating. Same thing with the sweet potato muffins. I had the woman who lost all the weight, she served it to her church. She said 150 people ate vegan and didn't even know it. We love to do that, don't we? All right, when you start putting dairy in packaging, it gets really expensive. And of course, cow's milk now is being edged out on the dairy shelves by the plant-based milks, and some of the dairy industry is trying to get them not to call it milk. Oh, I think they're gonna lose that one. All right, other ridiculously cheap foods, when they're in season especially, freeze them so you can have them when they're not in season and more expensive. Apples, just great. I'm going to talk about medical expenses very briefly here, and we've got these prices here. We can see the cost of angioplasty, about $20,000 versus India. Why is it so much cheaper in India? Because they have figured out that Americans will come to India and get surgery, and there is such a demand for that. healthindiatourism.com. You can go to their website, and when you do that, you can even pick out a hospital you'd like to stay at. And if you click on the green button there, you can get a special promotional quote, which includes 1 day in ICU. Such a bargain. All right, I want people to really think about the cost of a hamburger at a restaurant. Is it just $5? No, I don't think so. If you dollar cost average, as we like to say at Smith Barney, the cost of a bypass surgery at $100,000, or in some cases as much as $1 million, that's not a $5 burger, that's a $1,000 burger. So that's what we're all paying for when you look at some of these statistics here. We can compare advertising dollars as well. And this is part of the USDA's checkoff program, and you can see that dairy products is actually a separate category from fluid milk, and way down at the bottom of the list, watermelons are only getting, $1.5 million to promote lycopene. That's sexy, isn't it? Can you imagine a lycopene mustache? Yeah. Well, we have to elect congressmen and women who understand this and don't vote for this kind of nonsense. I believe we have only one choice: to save our health, to save the world, the planet. We've got to deal with these preventable diseases. They're not sustainable, no matter who pays for it. You, me, the government, corporations, not sustainable. So here are some ideas out of the book that are the cheapest recipes on the planet. Burrito filling here. It's just pair it with beans and rice. There are all kinds of recipes with beans and rice. Smoothies. I love smoothies. Nothing like coming back on a hot day and after a run, or even not, just to have a simple smoothie. Frozen banana, a mango. We have mango trees in Florida, but if you don't up here, which I don't think you do, you can get them frozen and they're just as delicious. So tortillas versus burritos. If you get these multi-packs, you can get them at the big box store like that very cheaply, but I like the sprouted corn tortillas that you can find. Those are really yummy, and I'll just put those in the toaster oven, put a little peanut butter, nut butter on them, very yummy. You can get frozen fries, but those are going to be pretty expensive. You start putting them in packages, and they're really expensive, 22 cents an ounce here. And as I take pictures of these kinds of foods. People stroll into my picture without my asking or setting it up, and I just want to run up to them and say, hey, there's a great deal on beans. Just a couple aisles over, follow me, but I don't. All right, forget the humane meat myth. If you have any questions about that, go to humanemyth.org and read all about that. Another fabulous meme by Vegan Street. And yes, our canines. Let's get over the canines already. There's so many great comparison pictures of real canine carnivores who just have those kinds of teeth, and we don't. All right. Pretty much any food you love can be veganized, and do it for cheaply. I'm going to conclude. I'm going to do the Q&A challenging. I just want to kind of plant the seed out there. I'm going to do a plank contest. Even though I got to tell you, I carried a lot of luggage and lifted a lot of luggage on the plane yesterday, so my shoulders are at a disadvantage. But I always like to invite people to do a plank contest with me, just to kind of show that vegans can, and maybe to inspire others to join this journey. And that is the beginning of my journey up there. It was not pretty and not fun, but it's doable. All right. That is, when I was at the senior games, I posted this on Facebook. How many of you follow me on Facebook? Are there a few? Yeah, okay, thanks. So this past week I posted, there was a woman, I was just standing there going to my next event, and I hear this woman talking to about 10 other women standing around her saying, if you want to get rid of your belly, you really need to stop eating broccoli. Did I just hear what I think I heard? So I just turned around, and I'm wearing my Eat Vegan on $4 a day shirt, and I go, and I had one of my ribbons in my hand. I said, I just placed 7th in the 800, or 5th in the 800 meters, and I eat lots of broccoli. And she comes up to me and she pats my tummy and she says, well, you really got to stop eating the carbs to get rid of this. And I'm going like, my mom and both sisters had breast cancer. And this other woman there is saying, I thought broccoli was good for Alzheimer's. And I'm going, yes, it is. And you need to like re-educate here. And I tried to be very diplomatic about it, but that's the kind of stuff that's floating around out there, and it's very scary. All right, my 3 babies listening to the vegan argument again. They do grow up, and it's all about being around for the kids and the grandkids. My parents were so sick and diseased by the time I had kids, they couldn't lift them, let alone babysit them. And entire generations are losing each other and don't even know it. It is so sad. And they do grow up. One of the many fun things I've done was being the assistant volunteer coach at our high school, taking the kids out into the Gulf and running, and many of them had never heard the word vegan before, and they were so curious, because I would actually run with them. And so they asked me at their summer camp to bring in vegan food. So that is another way you can educate, versus a complicated diet like, how many of you have heard that a vegan diet is complicated? Okay, I'm seeing a few nodding heads here. This is complicated. This is really complicated. Heart disease, and that's what you have to go through. That is an incision 1 month after open heart surgery. And of course, the hospital food you get is amazing. We call this in financial services annuitizing the business. You just make sure everybody keeps staying sick so you can get them as repeated customers. And of course, that is complicated, trying to keep up with the meds. $1 million it costs for 30 days in cardiac rehab. You have 2 choices. We could perform triple bypass surgery, where we take a vein out of your thigh and open up your chest so we can sew the vein into your coronary artery. That costs more than $100,000. It'll keep you laid up for at least 2 months. Or we could put you on a vegan diet. Yeah, right. Imagine if the pharmaceutical industry actually cared about improving our health. I'll never forget, I went to my doctor's office one day, and I do this sometimes just to annoy them. I get my blood work done, and they'll call me with the results and say, remind me again, what are you on? Lipitor, right? And I go, no, I'm on plants. But one time at the doctor's office when I was checking out, the doctor actually made the pharmaceutical rep do her presentation in front of us in the waiting area, in the checkout area. He just wanted us to know what he had to go through. And this is the kind of stuff that really needs to change. So here are my best tips. They're all in the book about eating well on a budget, eating vegan on a budget, and it is keep a list, because if you don't keep a list, you are so tempted to buy other things. Buy in bulk, shop the circumference of the store, because that's where the cheap things are. They really want to put expensive things at eye level. The manufacturers pay for that, so you will grab them and be tempted. So be sure to check the top and bottom of the shelves. Buy store brands. They're often the cheapest, not always. And pay with cash. When I worked as a TV investigative and consumer reporter, I worked a lot with the credit bureaus and trying to help people manage their money. And they said, you should put the amount of cash you have in a drawer that you're going to spend at the end of the week, that you'll have for the week. And if you spend all that cash before the end of the week, then it's time to get yourself invited to your neighbors for dinner. Keep receipts so you really can track it. And then, of course, cook from scratch is the last one. And people say, oh, I don't have time to cook from scratch. And I go, oh, you don't have time for diabetes, cancer, and heart disease. Those are real time wasters. I spent my childhood in hospitals. I was the youngest in my family, so I got to see what all this would look like later on down the line if I didn't clean up my act or do, as doctors said to me, something very different. Are you going to end up like everybody else? So we do have the power to change, and it's really not that hard. And of course, being an activist, those are my Eat Vegan. Of course, these were taken a long time ago. They really faded out now, but I wear these at every race I do, every single race. So that not only when I win the age group award and I get my picture taken, but see those other non-vegans there? Their whole families are going to see pictures of a vegan placing in her age group, going like, what's that about? Because I have had people come up to me as I'm holding this award in my hand and say, you can't run on a vegan diet, as they're staring at my shirt. That's the time to engage, the time to educate, a very teachable moment, and I use running as my activism. And all the money I'm saving by eating vegan, I can enter these races. I make sure I get photographed with the most ridiculous mascot. And of course, I take advantage of every possible photo op and plaster it all over social media. Don't tell me you can't run on a vegan diet. Of course you can. And then there's the vegan mobile. I've actually taken pictures of people taking pictures of my car. And I make sure I have all the running magnets up there, the local running club, and all the running distances I've done, so people will get that part of the equation. And then ultimately the license plate, that's my website, Veg Coach. So vegan for everything. Of course you can save so much money. And this is always a lot of fun. Possible side effects of a vegan diet: weight loss, energy gain, stronger sex life, longer life, reduced risk of several diseases, including diabetes and heart disease, cleaner water, cleaner air, reduced global warming, reduced clear cutting of rainforests, more food, less hunger, fewer wars over resources, more wildlife, less animal death, may also cause feelings of euphoria from knowing that you are improving your health and the health of the planet. Thank you, Marla Rose. All right, now that you've seen this, you are all certified to be the broccoli rep, because who else is, as I like to say. These are some of my favorite resources, my website, Veg Coach, veganbodybuilding.com. I love Robert Cheek. Anytime somebody asks me the protein question, I say, run over to Robert's website, veganbodybuilding.com. These guys and gals have been they're winning bodybuilding contests, and they're very bulked up. Obviously, runners don't necessarily want to have all that muscle mass running around with them. So we look a little different, but it's a great website to address the protein question. The bodybuilders get plenty of protein. Localharvest.org, as I mentioned, for finding local farms near you. Seeds of Change, they have non-GMO seeds, so if you want to grow your own, that's a really cheap way to go. Purcell Mountain Farms, there are others like them. They have organic beans online if you don't have them available where you are. And of course, Dr. McDougall, PCRM, and nutritionmd.org, which is part of PCRM's website. If you want to design your own nutrition or eating plan, you can go there, pick out recipes you like, and they have a whole menu plan that it will spit out for you for the week, as well as a shopping list. And then finally, nutritionfacts.org, Dr. Greger's wonderful site of videos. If you don't get his videos or newsletters, be sure that you do that. So I'm going to spend the last, I think I have technically about 10 more minutes. I will do the Q&A while I am having the plank contest. So at this moment in time, I would like to invite those of you who are feeling strong. I will tell you, in full disclosure, that my plank record was 6 minutes and 20 seconds at the Memphis Veg Fest. But I am coming off of a strong disadvantage of having just competed and not well rested, so I'm giving you the option. I don't think I'll probably last more than 3 minutes today. But you never know. This is a hard floor. If you have any pre-existing conditions, we're not asking anybody to sign any waivers. You're welcome to join me up here. For those of you who are scooting onto other things, I will be doing a book signing at my publisher's table. It's pretty much right across the way. And I'll be over there the rest of the day when I'm not. I think I'm reading a story to some kids, and then we're doing the panel discussion at the end. So I'm going to jump on the floor now and let the photographer get the positioning here. And any of you who want to do this, I'm going to be doing it on my elbows. And I would encourage that because most of us, I'm sure, are doing lots of computer work, and the wrist might be a little tender, but whatever works. So just come on up if you want to participate. And as soon as we get the plank contest going, I will address questions. I don't know if we have a microphone. We're getting a cast of thousands. Awesome. So just stand on either side of me. Oh my gosh, you went to the National Senior Games.
Yes.
Oh! She's wearing the shirt. What did you do?
5K.
5K. How'd you do?
I took 11th.
She took 11th, and there are a lot of people who competed,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
How many? Do you know?
I took 40th out of all women.
40th out of all women in the 5K at the National Senior Games. Yay! And your name is?
Kathy.
Kathy. Vegan?
Yep.
Okay. I guess I should have, fresh vegan. Okay, awesome. And I should say too, one of the reasons that athletes are jumping on this bandwagon, and this is the last thing I'll say, but it does relate to saving medical costs because you're not going to be taking medicine for arthritis. Vegans generally, not always, but we don't get arthritis. Women who used to beat me 10 years ago, they're gone. They're not running. They got arthritis of the knees, or they're dead. Okay, she said that. Alrighty, I'm not that old. So, how old am I? Did somebody want to guess that if we don't already know? 26, yeah, no. Well, that was 6, oh, that's right, I showed that. I'll be 65 in November, so, all right.
You're 26 in vegan years.
There you go. Thank you. All right, so we now need to have somebody with a timer. Who would like to volunteer to be our timer? Yes? Okay. All right, so we will get into position. And however you want to do that, and notice we're having face forward here. And I hope the camera can see. Are you good, Mr. Photographer? I know you were. You lost me. Okay, should I trade places with one of the gentlemen? Okay, all right. I'm going to have you guys move down. Yes, he told me I had to get in this position here. So there's what? How many? Do we know how many are participating? Somebody count that number? And we will get that to you, photographer. All right, so just when you're ready to start the stopwatch, just give us a go, and then we'll start asking questions.
Okay, I'll say 3, 2, 1, go. So 3, 2, 1, go.
Oh, I forgot to take my heels off. Oh. All right, well, deal. Oh, you're brave. Wow, awesome. Okay, yeah, great, awesome. Awesome. Woo! You give massages too? Really could use a foot massage about now. Okay, questions. Just fire them out loudly so I can hear them.
What do you do for B12?
I take a supplement. The what? You have to shout loudly because my ears are facing down. What do I eat in a day? Breakfast, oatmeal, either slow-cooked oats if I have time, which is rarely, old-fashioned oats, pour hot water that I'm using for my green tea over that with berries, nuts, seeds, chia, whatever, flax seeds. 5 minutes. Oh, thank you for that. We have 5 minutes. Wait a minute. If I go longer, can we go longer than 5 minutes? All right. Oh, no. Okay. Also, timer, if you would give us minute countdowns.
We're past a minute.
Okay. So let us know in 30-second increments from here on. Okay, lunch is, I usually make a very large salad, and that'll carry me through to dinner. I'll have a burrito, maybe for lunch or dinner. I have been known to do the frozen things. Plant Pure has a new line of food out, but I've been doing Amy's, their combinations as well, if I'm in a hurry. But I do try and cook from scratch as much as possible.
30 seconds.
30 seconds for what? Oh, minute 30. All right, yeah, give us the total. Like if it's a minute 30, 2 minutes. And say it loudly, please. A minute 30 seconds, okay.
Actually, no,
We got a timer here.
we're at 2 minutes now.
2 minutes now, okay, all right. Next question. Dinner. Leftover salad. Yeah, I'll try and do a stir fry. I like cooked vegetables at night with a whole grain, quinoa, brown rice. Millet, I love millet. Love my grains. Eat the colors of the rainbow. The animal kingdom is pretty much brown, brown, and brown. Okay. For the
2.5 minutes.
What other supplements do you take?
none. I try and get my omegas through the seeds. Sometimes I'll take a multi if I'm feeling like I need it, but not usually.
What kind of coaching do you do?
I do online coaching, either vegan lifestyle or starting a program
3 minutes.
from running. Okay, I'm not going to answer any more questions. I'll answer questions out at the table. Oh, this is a strong group. Jeez. That'll teach me. Of course, my elbows are slipping on this carpet and material. How many people do you know who do planks in a dress?
I rented.
How many are left? Oh. You guys are all winners. You rock. What's our time?
Just about 4 minutes and 4 seconds. 3. We're at 4 minutes.
Oh, I'm done. Woo! You guys can keep going until they throw us out. I encourage doing a downward dog just a little bit after this, or child's pose, whatever. Be sure and stretch.